Hey guys, I am Big and Scary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring in our bottom left corner, Infidela. Infidel, I'm going to go with Lavender Terran. Lavender. And you've got Infidel, which is, a bad person, and then Lavender. I like the juxtaposition, and I use that word correctly. And we have Loyb Harv, a very nice person, a green Protoss in the top right corner. We are on Cloud Kingdom. Harv is in High Diamond, and Della, I'm going to go Della, is in Masters. I think High Masters, actually. We can tell by the colors this is not a match played on the ladder, so I'm betting that Infidela is giving Harv just a little bit of a practice match. Go against the people who are better than you, forces you yourself to play better. Have you ever heard of that? It's called the Michael Jordan effect. People who played with Michael Jordan actually performed better because they wanted to impress him. They pushed themselves a little bit farther, and they were more confident because they were playing with somebody who was a super professional. I read an article about it. It was very fascinating. I'm not going to tell you guys anything else because you should learn it yourself. And you know what? The opponents should learn about their opponents. So that's what Harv's doing right now. He's sending out his probe. He's got that gateway on the way for the high ground, not throwing any sort of shenanigans down on the low ground. No Forge Fast Expand for this guy, not until he identifies exactly what sort of build Della is doing. And the Lavender Terran is completing his wall off. He's still got that supply depot lowered, but he's got plenty of time to raise it to prevent the scout coming out from Harv. And he wants to prevent that scout. He doesn't want the gas timing to be exposed, so that Harv identifies that it's going to be a gas heavy build, or in this case, more likely an expansion is going to be in order in a very short amount of time. In fact, a really nice play by Della, starting the supply depot but not finishing it. It's got 100 HP. Oh, it looks like the SCV is going to take the probe to the House of Pain. Do you even lift? No, I don't think that probe lifts. It's going down. Oh my goodness, it's incredible. It is incredible. I've always wondered who wins in a straight up fight, and the SCV of course does, because it's got more hit points and they do pretty much the same amount of damage at pretty much the same rate. But the probe with proper micro can regenerate those shields, and it'll come out if you're kind of sneaky. But in a straight slugging match, SCV takes the cake 9 times out of 10. And this SCV takes the cake. He's coming in, taking the cake, the delicious cake of a properly scouted base. He's going to be seeing pretty much everything. There's no secrets here for Harv. He's grabbed that one gas, not the second one. He's going to have plenty of gas to start the warp gate tech immediately. You can see that he's not saving a lot of energy. He will have one so that he can chrono boost the Cybernetics core immediately as soon as it starts. There goes the chrono boost. So we can see that if there is going to be aggression coming out of Harv, it will be delayed. Speaking of delayed, the engineering bay block going down by Della, the Lavender Terran, is proving to be rather rambunctious, throwing down that engineering bay, delaying that expansion. But it doesn't look like an expansion is forthcoming. We don't see a lot of money saved up from Harv. He only has 200. It'll be a couple more seconds for him to grab his expansion, if that is indeed what he's going for. We don't see another gateway being built on the high ground, so that is incredibly likely. Single probe coming out, and unless that probe is going to be positioning for a 4-gate or some sort of hidden tech, he is indeed going to be throwing down his own expansion. Still just the one gas, which means that Harv's going to be focusing more on a mineral grab, more on probe production for the time being, but don't discount that hidden tech. I mean, Protoss can be kind of sneaky, especially if you give them enough time to be sneaky. Della is playing this pretty much straight up and down how you play Terran. He's getting the 2 gas now that he's grabbed his own base, as well as 2 barracks behind the 1 Rax Fast Expand, so that he stays on top of this macro. He knows that it's going to be difficult for him to push out with just 3 Raxes and deny this expansion, but on the other hand, he really doesn't know what Harv has up on the base. He could only be dealing with a single gateway for the time being, so that the saturation can be completed down on the natural, but he's got to assume that there's going to be at least 1 or 2 more gateways, and with the chrono boosts continually going down on that Cybernetics core, the warp gate tech will be done in time to deal with any push that might be forthcoming from Della. It looks like both players are going to be very passive right now. They've both tried for that early land grab. They're both doing very nice in the economy. You can see the harvester count is pretty much neck and neck, and even though Lavender Terran is a little bit behind as far as harvesters go, he does have those 2 orbital commands, and he's got plenty of energy. He can throw down some mules and make up that deficit in short order, and it looks like Protoss is just now beginning to saturate his expansion down in this bottom right corner. couple sentries also coming out. Well, it's important to get those sentries out now so that they can accumulate energy, and that extra energy can be used later on to cut up these Marines into small, manageable, bite-sized chunks, especially if he's going for this, which appears to be the Immortal Sentry Zealot mix, which has proven to be very effective against so many different builds as of late. It's a bit old now. The metagame is starting to evolve, and I think Terran has a very nice answer to it, which is to be a little bit more flexible. Realize that those Immortals and those Sentries are not very mobile, and this build falls prey very quickly to some drop play. And the bio build that Della is apparently going for him, and he's got quite a lot of barracks out. We're probably going to see a starport go up right next to this factory. We can see an engineering bay was going to be built there, and so we can see a lot of upgrades. Della's going to be biding his time. He's going to get out the unit composition that he needs. He's going to get combat shields in conjunction with the stem. There goes the combat shields. Nice. And there goes the starport right next to that factory. You're going to see a reactor on that factory. Bam! Oh, man, it's like I've seen this build before. This is crazy. But on the other side of things, it looks like Harv is actually throwing a little bit of a wrench in the plans. He's getting his own robotics support facility. That robotics bay is going to allow him to get either warp prism speed, which can be very effective at combating the high mobility inherent to the Terran biological build, or more likely he's going to get some Colossus out, and those Colossus can absolutely mitigate the presence of Marines, just absolutely decimate them very, very quickly. And either one of those will be very successful if microed properly. I think Colossus is by far the standard, but I'm not sure which one would be more effective. It really comes down to Harv and how he wants to play this game, and also to Della, how aggressive he wants to be. If he wants to be super aggressive, really nice instincts there, getting the scan, seeing the small shimmer of the observer moving. It doesn't seem like much. It also doesn't seem like it's cost effective to waste the 300 some minerals that you lose by not calling down that mule, but you cannot overstate the possibility of scouting. I mean, if that observer had keyed up to this main force and actually sees when Della decides to move out, it could position the Colossus in the perfect position and absolutely crush that entire force. And we can see that the Colossus range has been started and is not being chrono boosted currently, but we'll keep an eye on that. And we can also see the first Colossus is underway, actually popping out just now, the second one underway. So that Colossus number is just going to get higher and higher, and it looks like Della is taking it upon himself to move out with those first two medevacs. Another two are en route, and the engineering bays are just now finishing. No 1-1 for Terran, and I don't think there's 1-1 for Protoss either. We've got to be careful with all these Stalkers. Stalker is being forced to pull back, but it looks like out of the three, none of them survive. At the same time, forcing the cancel on this Nexus oh yes, just barely in time. Harv almost losing that Nexus, all 400 of those minerals, but these Terran have to be very careful. There was no stim in those last couple forces, but remember, all that energy is being saved up by those Stalkers, and this is that mobility that I was talking about. Della doing a fantastic job of kiting the enemy force, splitting it up. Unfortunately, Colossus already on the high ground, but unfortunately for the Colossus, he doesn't have range, is exposing himself to all those Marauders and those Marines. There goes the nice micro from Harv, keeping that expensive Colossus alive, and making it so that the Marines and the Marauders are having a hard time actually engaging in the force that they want to engage in, which would be the probes, and away from the main force of the Protoss army. Second Colossus is now on the scene, and we can see that the Thermal Lance is going to finish in approximately 10 seconds. I think Harv is in a strong enough position now that he can actually afford to take this third, but he's got to be very careful. The two medevacs are still out on the field. We can see another two are en route, and 5 total. And again, that high mobility can make it very easy to kite around this Protoss death ball, and oh man, it's very difficult to kite around that death ball if you don't have anywhere to go, and unfortunately really using this map to the advantage. Harv has successfully caught the two medevacs that had made it into his base and cut them down, so a bit of a loss there for Della, a significant loss actually. If those medevacs had survived, he could have kept the Protoss army contained pretty much indefinitely, because the second he moves out, he's going to get hit from behind, and you know, that possibility, that fear of getting hit by just a 1 or 2 medevacs filled with Marines just can absolutely ravage a mineral line, and that fear can keep a Protoss contained almost indefinitely, and that containment is exactly what Terran needs right now to get up those upgrades. We can see that 1-1 just finished, and if you don't believe me, I will click a Marauder. No, No, Marine. There we go, 1-1. And that 1-1 will only come in more handy as this medevac is pushing out now down to the south side of the natural, which is nice, fat, and juicy with absolutely no static defenses there. In fact, Della is using his own factory to kite the stalkers away from that natural. And we can see just in time those probes were transferring off into the third. Here comes the fantastic drop, quickly just crushing that harvester count right down to 55 over 66, and we can see the economy is heavily in the favor of Della. A huge amount of mineral income in his favor, and we don't see any more Colossus being built. And I think that's because Harv realizes that they're not going to be as effective as some of the more mobile units. He's getting that Twilight Council, he'll be getting that Blink, so that he can actually answer back with some high mobility units of his own, but it might be too late. He's already on his back foot. He's getting Charge instead. Interesting choice. He really wants to commit to this death bill. Charge will be far more effective if he can actually manage to engage Della in a straight up battle, but he hasn't been very lucky at that yet, and I think that is coming. I think we're going to see a large straight on slugging match in short order, but when that happens, it'll be on Della's terms, because Della is doing a fantastic job at dictating the pace of this engagement. And this is why right here, those 3 medevacs, he's keeping the heavy hitters, the Colossus, contained, and Della's not going to move in. He's not going to poke at this mineral line until he pokes with his main force, which is coagulating down by the third. That's going to be pushing north. He'll probably poke in at the third with his main force and then drop behind the mineral lines. Unfortunately, the timing is going to be a little bit off, and it looks like those medevacs are moving in by themselves now before the photon cannons finish, but well within range of the Colossus. The Colossus having their +1 range. This entire drop has gone down, and it doesn't look like any of them are going to survive. Oh wow, no, 2 of them actually do manage to get out. 2 Marauders and a single Marine. Unfortunately, the majority of the ground force has been taken out, and they did scout that those 2 photon cannons were being warped in, unpowered for now, but without any ground force for these medevacs to support, they're going to have to pull back and actually meet up with the rest of the standing force. A lot of Vikings are in this this group, and they're going to be able to take down those 4 Colossus, but it looks like the AoE is going to be taking another form. Here comes a 5th Colossus, but the High Templar Archive is out on the field, or rather being built. And once Storm gets out on the field, we'll see the AoE coming down from the High Templars, or Archons rather than Colossus, and that will probably necessitate a switch to Ghosts coming out of Della, as long as this engagement actually goes on that long. We really don't know how long this is going to be, because any one of these massive engagements, which we're going to be seeing in a couple seconds as Della has now gotten maxed and Harv is approaching it, both players are going to be moving out. Both players are wanting to take 1 or 2 bases from their opponent. And if the engagements go as badly as they could go for one player or the other, we could see a good game instantly. High Templars are now out on the field. They're beginning to save their energy. Storm was started almost immediately. +2 finishing for Terran, while the +2 for Protoss is also ticking off. So both players really are just raring to go. But I don't think Harv feels comfortable enough to push down into the low ground to protect this 4th that he was taking, forcing the cancel. Here comes those Zealots. There goes the stem from Terran, kiting backwards, just melting away all those Zealots, trying to trick the Vikings to go up to the high ground to expose themselves from the anti-air fire from the Stalkers. We can see that the Storm is not quite done, which is what Harv desperately needs for this fight. He just needs to buy a little bit more time. Della is very shy about pushing up into this choke, because he's afraid of that Storm as well as the combined AoE fire of all those Colossus, and he really can't position his Vikings properly to deal with those Colossus because of all the anti-air represented by those Stalkers. So this is a really tense moment, guys. It's very tense. I don't know if you can tell. It's super tense. Psionic Storm has finished, though, and the +3 is on the way, so I think Della might want to pull back now. He's going to be in a lot of trouble if he pushes forward and gets hit a couple of times by some Psionic Storms. And remember that feedback is there too, and he could take away all the healing potential of those units. There goes the quick stem, and the Marines and Marauders now have the high ground. Don't have to worry too much about that choke, but quickly pulling back as soon as they see that the enemy forces are coming there. And look at all this long distance mining, taking the command center as well as preparing to take the 4th down the high ground. Looking away just for a single second is all you need for Harv to take advantage of that. He's poking down into the high ground, from the high ground, exposing his Colossus to a little bit of damage there, but it was more because Della was trying to split them up. He had some units on the high ground, some units on the low ground. He's got ghosts coming out, which is exactly what I was talking about. Getting that EMP out will do a lot. Come on, where's the storm? Really just trying desperately to keep his units away from the storm. The Vikings raining down fire. Some really nice stutter step micro from all the Marines and Marauders. Unfortunately, the Vikings were left undefended, and the combined anti-air from the Stalkers have melted them away without doing a huge amount of damage to the numbers of Colossus. We can see 4 out on the field, the 5th one underway. Blink, which would have helped in that combat, has been started for a while now. Is actually more than halfway done and will be added into the next mix. We didn't see any storm coming out of these High Templars, which was very disappointing, but it's more important to make sure that those storms land rather than just spam them out. So that was some very good self-control coming out of Harv. Delhi, realizing that those Vikings were pretty much lost, pulling back with the main force, his Marauders and Marines. A very wise plan there, but now he's got to deal with this aggression coming out of Harv, and this aggression's coming on the back of those storms that were not sent out last time. So Della's going to have to be very careful. He does have another round of Vikings out, and these Colossus have been weakened because of the previous fight. So here comes the Colossus up on the high ground, going to be raining down fire onto those SCVs, and this type of economy that we're seeing can definitely afford to take a hit. He can lose one base, and Della's not going to be out of this by any stretch of the imagination. Rather, Harv only has 2 bases that are mining. His main is completely mined out, and the 4th looks like he's trying to take it again, but that's going to be in a very exposed position. And this exposed position, Della's doing a good job of defending with those Vikings up on the high ground. Oh no, they're chasing after them, going off to the high ground, allowing the Stalkers to get 1 or 2 free hits. 4 Colossus are still up, 2 of them having only 2 health and 38 health, respectively. Oh man, it's a very tense moment for those Colossus. The range and AoE damage, 1 of them going out, 2 of them going down. Some excellent right-clicking micro by Della on that, making sure that the weakened Colossus do go down, knowing that it was very important for him to take down the the AoE represented by them. And you know that AoE is going to be missing from the next engagement. The Ghosts are going to be able to EMP out a lot of the energy from the High Templars, which are now sitting on pretty much full tanks of gas, praying that they get to throw down some sort of money storm to really swing the advantage in his favor. These Ghosts are sitting with 3-3, and that 4th is completely up. 3-3 is also done for Protoss as they begin to start on their shield upgrades. Those shields are going to be pretty much useless in the coming fights, though, with all the EMPs that are going to be falling down. Della is pushing down into that 4th, and remember that this 4th represents one of the 3 mining bases that Protoss has. Terran, oh wow, no, he's actually mined out of his natural too, so he's mining out a lot of money. He's running out of a lot of money. He's got a lot banked. So as long as he remains cost effective with his units, here comes the Ghost, really wanting to throw down some EMPs. Doesn't see the High Templars, so he's settling on EMPing the lesser units. There goes one of the storms, but the majority of the units are over on the left side. Here comes another fantastic storm. Look at all that damage. Those Marauders are totally weak right now. The Medivacs unable to heal them as they continually kite backwards. Even though the Colossus has not been able to engage that handy blink from the Stalkers, allowing Harv to chase after this huge Marauder ball. This is the worst thing that could have happened to Harv. He was losing a massive amount of force. He's done a lot of damage, but he did not succeed in taking down the expansion from Harv. Has not crippled the money, the income of Harv in any way, and Della is now left with pretty much a crippled force, and he's losing all of his medevacs too. However, Della does have a good economy. He's got a strong economy, 66 over 72, but it's backed by a lot of mules. He's even on mineral income, and he's a little bit behind, or no, a little bit ahead on gas, and he's also got a massive amount of infrastructure. I mean, look at all of these unit-producing buildings. The sheer amount of units being produced is quite staggering, and I don't think he's going to have much of an issue at holding back any sort of aggression that can come out of Harvey. Even though at 150 over 190, he'll continually stream in units. I might actually expect to see some of those High Templars morph into Archons just to kind of buffer this force. It looks like Harv is making his way down to the bottom right corner. A very wise move there. Definitely wants to delay or crush this expansion. However, planetary fortresses can be very resilient when mass repaired by so many SCVs. Unfortunately, the Colossus are really going to be doing a number on all those SCVs. Planetary Fortress remains alive, though, and at the same time, it looks like Della is repositioning all of his forces. If Protoss had stuck around there for very much longer, they would have been caught in a very bad way, and this is exactly what is happening. The Death Ball has been split up, the Colossus going up on the high ground. He really needs to collect this Death Ball. He doesn't want to get it chopped up like that. Here comes the Archons, going to be doing a fantastic amount of damage, because remember, all those ghosts have gone down. He's back to 7, but he lost a lot more than that in that first engagement, unless I am mistaken, and I might be. Only 3 hanging out in this force. One of the Colossus getting kind of aggroed. He's raging right now. He's pushing in, and you know that the game has gone on long when you see Terran building armor. This is a really cool play, keeping your High Templars down by the watchtower, allowing them to feed back any ghosts that kind of poke their head up within range. Unfortunately, this huge ball it's very difficult to feed back everything in there, especially when the ghosts are clumped up underneath Vikings. Very difficult to click them. A nice scan. I don't know if that scan allows him to see. I don't think it did. Oh, but I do appreciate this. A nice little suicide of SCVs into the top left corner, trying to take out some of the probes there. Unfortunately, just missing the force for Harv as he pushes up into the high ground. Della moves off to the top left. Again, going to be poking at this expansion on the 4th. Really needs to cripple the economy. Oh, got to be careful with all these medevacs on the low ground. They're going to be taking some damage from the Stalkers and the Archons as they come within range. Those medevacs really need to move. There go the Ghosts cloaking to come in. Money EMP down on all those High Templars. None of them have energy for Storm anymore. The Stutter Step Micro, and there goes a Storm. Stutter Step Micro from the Marines and Marauders as they push back the Zealots. Eventually those Zealots are going to go down completely, but a nice warp-in of Zealots on the north side of that 4th base continue to Stutter Step Micro back, but Della is just slowly getting, it's just the war of attrition is wearing his units down. Those Zealots are proving to be incredibly cost effective, and there goes the blink from those Stalkers. Harv really likes his Warp Gate units, but he's so good at them, I can't blame him. At the same time, some Ghosts have remained alive, managed to take down a couple of the Archons. At the same time, they're going to have to push back because they don't have any supporting units, and they have to worry about this Warp Gate rich army. Let's look at that economy. 57 over 62, but a massive lead in the minerals for Della. Harv is still a little bit behind on the mineral income because he's mined out in so many of his bases. His 3rd is actually getting mined out, and he needs to take this 5th to continue to stream out the mineral-rich Zealots that has made his force so very cost-effective. He doesn't have nearly the bank that Della has. I mean, Della has over 3K, 2K for gas and minerals, but less for Harv, significantly less. He's running out of money, actually. So as long as Della can continue to play this war of attrition, as long as he can be so cost effective with his units, even though he's a little bit behind on the resources lost tab, he's got more resources to lose. And it looks like he's not going to mind to lose this base in the bottom right corner. He's got a nice force building up on the low ground, pushing off. Some Ghosts are thrown into the mix, but they're definitely not the heavy hitters. It's the Marauders, which will be doing the majority of the damage, pushing off into one of this few remaining bases that Harv has, and immediately Harv reacts to protect that base. I don't think he's going to arrive in time. That Nexus does go down. However, nice concave for Harv as he pushes in from the high ground, pushing down into the low ground, again forcing the Stutter Step Micro. Massive Storm. Just as that High Templar dies, he gets out a fantastic storm. You see all the red represented in this bio ball. All the medevacs are gone down too, so these Marauders and Marines really can't afford to keep stimming because they're just stimming to death. And this Colossus getting a massive amount of kills just by raining down 1 or 2 hits on these units. Barely making it back to the medevacs exit. They just keep running. They're like, no, I'm never going back. I'm never going back. This Colossus is a little bit more overeager than his friends. I don't think he's going to survive for very long. Indeed, the Marauders are pushing off into the high ground. And really, we're coming down to the late game. 40 Harvesters over 62. It's been late game for a while now, but this is the very late game whenever people start to run out of money completely and every unit begins to count. Another fantastic storm there. This mining facility has gone down from the combined fire of the Colossus up on the high ground. Unfortunately, the meat shields are beginning to get worn out from Harv. He doesn't have as many units to protect his Colossus, and he doesn't have nearly the amount of anti-air that he had a couple of moments ago. And the Vikings are having their way with the Colossus. We only have 2 Colossus 4 on the field, but 2 in this main bio ball. The other 2 will be pushing down. And it looks like Harv is going to be continually relying upon Archons, which allow you to spend a lot of gas and minerals to get out a pretty heavy hitting unit. But it's not a super amount of either, and it's also rather quick because you can just warp them in from the warp gates. I think Harv is becoming increasingly desperate. However, he's in a pretty good position. He's got 2 maces that are mining completely, a third that will be taken shortly, and he's only against 1.5 base Terran. However, that's a lot of orbitals, and they're going to be able to drop down a lot of mules as long as they have a facility to mine from, and that's what Harv is going to be dealing with now. 170 over 165 supply. Harv is moving into one of Della's few mining bases. He is mining with he's repairing with every bit of health he has. That planetary fortress absolutely has to stay up. Unfortunately, it could have stayed up if Della had pushed in and decided to save it. But he's just holding back, mass producing units. He doesn't really need the money. He's still got 1K over 15, and he's actually repositioning the orbital from his main base over to the low ground 4th, I guess. Numbers have no meaning at this point. I mean, we're at the 35-minute mark, and this is definitely coming down to the wire. That massive bank that Della had just a very short time ago has completely run dry. The well is dry, and we're going to be coming down to a massive fight, and it's going to be all on the wire because Della's going to have all the units he's going to have coming up, and Harv is going to have to make either a massive save to keep his bases alive or a massive push to destroy the infrastructure of Terran so that even if he doesn't crush the army, he'll be able to wear it down like he has been doing. This Nexus is definitely going to go down. No stem. Oh, there was a stem, but there's just so many medevacs that he can heal them down. Remember, that's a lot of gas saved up, so Della can actually afford to get out a lot more ghosts to supplement this army. Here comes a nice push in from Harv, supported by so many Colossus raining down a lot of fire. Another money storm pushing back the bio ball. Oh, massive storm forcing those Marauders to walk right through it. Another just storm after storm. Sometimes you wish that they use that energy for feedback, but in reality there's just so many medevacs that even if they all got feedback, they'd still be able to repair almost instantly because they just accumulate energy so quickly. Harv is in a fantastic position, 194 over 140 for Della. Della has accumulated a little bit more wealth, but that's because his macro is slipping. He's not building anything more. Nothing more, actually. It seems like he's focusing all of his attention in this coming force, but it's not on micro because he's just allowing the storms to fall, allowing his force to just melt away. What a fantastic game. What a fantastic game. So these storms were absolutely massive, and I think that the MVP is going to have to go to the storm. I think Harv does a really good job of keeping alive the expensive units at the expense of the inexpensive units. Throws away Stalkers, throws away Zealots, but keeps alive his Colossus for so long, especially with the Vikings that represent such a threat on the field. And those Vikings had proved to be so ineffective that Della had phased them out of his standing army. In the last couple of fights, we didn't see any Vikings, but it's because those Vikings have done very little. They only really managed to kill all the Colossuses in one major fight. And they just weren't cutting it, and the Marauders really were, so he switched over to that, but he didn't capitalize on their high mobility like he should have. He should have been dropping off into so many different corners, and maybe he did, and I just totally missed it. If that's a case, if you guys could comment and tell me when, because I'd love to go and look back on it, but this game was kind of long. And then the High Templars came into their own whenever he switched over to that large bio ball and allowed those storms to fall because... clumping them up like that really isn't capitalizing on their strengths, which is mobility. You're basically fighting Death Ball with Death Ball, which is a bad combination for Terran and a good combination for Protoss. Something that Terran did do really well is switch over to those Ghosts in the mid-game and also use that mobility to keep Protoss contained during those first early skirmishes, but he moved away from it, which was, in my opinion, a mistake. You know what's not a mistake is watching my casts. You guys made a good decision today. If you guys have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Big and Scary. Bye.